All right. So let's go a little bit on why do we need to create a dynamic report. So imagine you want to share your code, you want to share your analysis with your peers, with a collaborator somewhere else. What's the first thing that you would do? You would open up PowerPoint. You're going to create your figures somewhere in R or even in Illustrator or somewhere else. You're going to export it, put into PowerPoint, write a few descriptions on the small little space that you have on PowerPoint, and then send it off to your collaborator. This is what I did very early this year when I started to create lots of reports for for fellow collaborators. The problem that I faced immediately was there's two problems. Number one, if you change any aspects of your figures, then you have to redo the whole entire process. You have to export the figure, paste it back into PowerPoint, change the description, which is time consuming, and I hated it a lot. And then the other thing is the space that you have on the PowerPoint. It's mainly taken up by your figure, and you have very little space to put your descriptions. You probably put in point forms and summarize whatever you're trying to say, but you can't express yourself, your thoughts in a very concise manner. Until I found our notebook. That's where everything changed, because now I can create a report as I perform my analysis. And whenever the code change or the figure change, because the collaborator wants a particular format, or I improve the code a little bit, the figure that comes out of the report automatically change. So that saves a lot of time. And most importantly, the quality of the report is very, very high. You can give it to your collaborator and they feel that you have learned something so useful and create something so beautiful with very little effort. So this is what I'm trying to share with you today, and hope you can use this and improve the way you create reports and share your data with people. And I want to see more of this type of dynamic reporting in the future. So in a bit, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my RStudio screen. Actually, I'm going to share my entire screen, and there's a reason for it. And if you want to follow along with what I type and what we're going through, there's several ways to do so. You can open up your RStudio on one side of your screen and look at my screen share on the other side and follow along. I will make sure that the font size on my screen is big enough for you to see. I will ask for your opinion in a bit. Alternative, like what I mentioned, if you opened up Etherpad on one side of the screen and your RStudio, you can copy the code from Etherpad and paste it onto your RStudio as we go along. So it depends on your preference and how you want to manage your screen. So then let's get down to this. So I'm going to share my screen now. And I'm going to select desktop 1. This should give me the entire screen. Okay, so can everybody see the font on my screen? Is it too small? If it's okay, give me a thumbs up on Zoom. There's a button on Zoom on the bottom panel. I think it's called.
I think it's small version.
Okay, so I'll bring up a little bit. So let's bring up to about 110 probably. Okay, not cooperating. Yep, 110. How about this? Is it better?
It's better, but if you can increase it even more.
Okay.
Or how about making your RStudio bigger on your screen? Because it's
I can do that as well. Let me try both. And 25. Okay. Okay, that's the reason why I want to make this I want to show my entire screen. You understand in a bit. Is this better?
Yes, this is better.
Better?
Yeah.
Better.
I mean, okay. I can read it, but if can be increased a little bit more, it would be, because my screen is not that large.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. Okay, let's bring it up by font size as well. Maybe 12. How about this?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Okay, we'll try this again. If okay, the reason why I want to show my entire screen, it's a big screen, and you're going to see it at a 4K resolution. So for those who are having smaller screens, it's going to look very small. I understand that, but the reason is because when we start to do this, I want to show you the output of the R notebook side by side, so we can actually see what goes on. But if this don't work, if you prefer to just look at my code and run your own output, let me know. And I can change this to a just showing my R Studio, and that will be better for you guys.
Hersham, I just wanted to say to people, I just realized if you in Zoom, if you remove people's pictures, then actually your screen gets much bigger. So I just did that.
Okay, I see. You mean like
you just toggle the view.
So changing the view to a speaker view, or
to
removing?
I don't know what it's called. It's called standard view.
Standard view. You can try that. Try that. If that works. Thanks, Abby. All right. So let's begin. So if you haven't tried this on your computer yet, there's some instructions that I've given during the in the email. There are several dependencies that you have to install before running R notebook. And the easiest way to install this dependency directly in R Studio is if you click on this plus sign. You can follow along with me. Click on this plus sign on the top left-hand corner of your screen and selecting R notebook. All right, I'm going to click this. And for those who have not installed the dependency, you will be there will be a pop-up that tells you that there are several packages that need to be installed. Just click on run or accept, and it will install. It will take a while, maybe like 2 or 3 minutes, but that will make things, it will speed things up, and then you can use R notebook directly. For the rest who have already done so, you should be able to see this page with several lines in there that says title, on the second line, title R notebook, output HTML notebook. If you see properly what we did, and when we select R notebook, there is another option to create a R Markdown. So what is R Markdown and why are we doing R notebook? Okay, both of these are exactly the same thing. They do the same thing. The formatting is the same. The difference is the purpose of the document. And R Markdown is meant for you to create a reproducible code. So let's say you have an input data, you want to show a collaborator, a colleague, how to run the code using that input data and output certain files. R Markdown does so. So it allows you to write your code, and with a click of a button, it runs the entire document and render the document output. R notebook is more dynamic, whereby you do not have to specify a particular input file. You can start from a processed file, let's say an inbuilt data from R, and you can run the code as you go along, but it will not run the entire document, or it will run the entire document every single time. It will pick up from where you left. So let's say you created a figure, let's say a day before, and you want to pick it up from there. You can do so without changing whatever you changed yesterday. Or with R Markdown, once you change something, it will rerun the entire code again. Small change, small differences, but generally the idea is still the same. Right? I'm going to show R notebook because that's more easier to learn, and it works slightly better because there's an output you can see immediately as you type along. All right, so I'm going to make my screen a little bit more efficient. I'm going to bring the console down. I'm going to slide this ahead so you can see more of my R notebook. Go ahead and save this wherever you want. Doesn't really matter where you save your R notebook. I'm going to save it just in home. I'm going to name it Ar Workshop 5. And without any extension, you can just type in the name of your file. It will save it as a RMD file, a R, again, it's very confusing, but it's an R Markdown file. Currently, mine is in the home folder, and you can see on bottom right corner of my screen, there's an R Workshop 5.rmd file saved here. So then right below, there is another file of the same name called with an extension with .nb.html. What is this? This is exactly the output of your R notebook in HTML form. Whenever you run a code, whenever you change something and you save your document, the HTML file will automatically render itself and produce the change that you have made. How do you view this? You can click on this. It will ask you whether you want to open in browser or in I think this another name is called in viewer. But another way, a better way, is to press preview at the top of your R notebook. So this is button here. I'm going to press preview, and a new window will open up that shows exactly the render of your R notebook document. So the cool thing here is that whenever, again, what I mentioned, whenever you change your R notebook, this HTML file will also change as you go along. So this is what I want to show you. And this is, I'm going to make this a bit smaller. I'm going to put it aside so that you can see the output and the code as we code this thing along. So I'm going to change the size a little bit. I think my computer is a bit laggy, probably because I'm sharing the entire screen, so might not be a good idea. Might change this later on. Let's see how it goes. Okay. So don't worry about all of this formatting. What does this mean? I'm going to show you exactly what it means. Actually, I'm going to go through step by step, but what you can immediately observe is that once you press preview, you will see the formatting of your R notebook. And you can see several elements down here already. For example, you have a header, you have the ability to write code within what we call as chunks. I'm going to explain what are chunks later on. And there are, these are all rich text format. You can actually click on links. You can do a lot of things with your HTML file, which is the output of our notebook. Okay, I'm going to simplify this a little bit. I'm going to go step by step and delete the entire code and start with the top part, right, from line 1 to 4. So this is what we call as the metadata. You can specify the description of your R notebook, your document. You can change this title. So let's change this to something else. Let's put it as how to create a dynamic report. Can change it to anything. It can be in parentheses, or it doesn't. Even if you forgot the parentheses, that's fine. It still works because it's understandable that this is actually a string to the metadata title, right? And then you have the output, which is very important. In this case, we are outputting the R notebook into a HTML notebook. There are several other outputs formats that you can actually render into. I'm going to paste I think I have a link that I'm going to paste into Etherpad that tells you the different output formats that you can actually create using our notebook. So it's going to be in Etherpad in a bit. There are several things that you can also include into your metadata. I'm going to add 2, and then I'm going to change the output metadata in a bit. So important thing, number 1, you can add in your name, and that is given by the title author, followed by your name. So I'm going to put in parentheses my name. Do remember one thing, there has to be a spacing between the colon and the text. If I've tested it before, if you miss that spacing, it's going to be interpreted as an entire command and it doesn't understand what it's trying to do. So leave a spacing between, let's say, the title and your text. So author is important. I'm going to save this, Control S, and you can see that the document on the right now changed. Now it has just the title, how to create the dynamic report, as well as my name, Frusham Hamid. You can also add today's date, and that's the metadata here is called date. And you can, again, type in any format. If you want to type it in text, let's say today is 28th September 2021, you can do so as a string and save that. Just going to add this. If you are familiar with dates in R using packages like lubridate or any other sort of like date formatted vectors or variables, you can add that if you want to. I'm going to teach you how to write a simple code to write today's date or the date that you created or save the document. Okay, I'm going to type it and I'm going to explain it. Yeah. So it's R sys.date with this. I think I missed out one colon. No, I missed out this. Should be outside. Okay. Again, it's all pasted in Etherpad. So if you are not, if you are having problems with copying the code or writing the code, go ahead onto Etherpad. If you don't see the code, just hit refresh, and it's going to be there in a bit. All right. So you can copy and paste the code directly from Etherpad. So this is the code. It's actually a string within an R code. Again, I'm going to show you what all of these symbols mean. But if I were to run this, what it does is it's going to run the function sys.date, which actually picks up the date of today's date based on your computer settings. So currently it's set at 28th of September in this format. And if you were to save this document tomorrow, the date will automatically change. So I feel this is very useful whenever you want to specify the date that you create or you render your document. So these are the two metadata, which is quite handy. So I mentioned that you can output your document as a HTML notebook, and you can share the HTML file with your friends and with your colleagues. You can add more information or output options to this notebook. So I'm going to do this, but first I'm going to create this. I'm going to press enter and send HTML notebook into a separate line followed by a tab. So again, what I did was to just return this to the next line and press tab. All right. The reason is because I'm going to specify more options to HTML notebook and add on along. After that, I'm going to type a colon after HTML notebook. Now it changes from a white text to a red text. And then I'm going to press enter, and I'm now ready to add other options. What are the several options that we can actually modify, several themes that we can modify? First, as I just mentioned, are themes. Some of you might want to change the look of your report. This is quite bland, it's black and white report. This is what you call default output of HTML notebook. There are several themes available, all built in with RStudio. I'm going to paste a link to a list of these themes if you are interested in looking at the different themes. But I'm going to use a theme called Cerulean today. Again, it's all inbuilt, and you can just type out the name of the theme and save your document. And you can see that now my document has a blue color font, and the output, all the text and colors of the code will now be based on this particular theme. Okay, so this is going to be quite useful. What else can you do? It's going to press enter. Now you can add more options, more information to your metadata. And I'm going to add in a TOC. This is short for tables of content, and the argument is true with a small caps. It's just TRUE in small. If I save this, you're not going to see anything yet because our document has no headers. So in a while, once we add in a couple of headers, you're going to see a table of contents coming up. You can also specify the depth of your table of contents. The argument is TOC_depth. and the input is the level that you want to include in your table of contents. So let's say I just want to include all the main header, the level 1 header. So I'm going to put a value of 1. If you put value of 2, you will include the main header plus the first subheader. That makes sense. And then probably just one last option, which is number sections, and I'll set it as true. This, what it does is to automatically number each of your headers. So the first header will be numbered as 1. If you have a subheader, it will be 1.1. And if you have the next main header, it's going to be labeled as 2. So it's very convenient and automatically set your header. Again, if I'm going to save this, you are not going to see any changes because we haven't included any headers yet. There are a couple of other options that you can actually include with table of contents. Like for example, you can make your table of contents float. So as you pass or if you move down the document, your table of contents can actually move together with you. It can be quite useful and when you want to navigate to a different header. So I'm going to include all of these other options to add to metadata in the link below in Etherpad. Gonna just refresh to make sure that Etherpad is updated with some of these links. Maybe I'll just create this. Give me a minute. Okay. All right. Probably it's there now. Okay. So that is more or less the most important options or changes that you can make to your metadata. And I think it looks pretty decent now. You can actually modify it even further. Like there are packages that you can actually use to create custom themes if you want to. Again, I'm going to paste that in the Etherpad as well. There are also, if you know a little bit of CSS and HTML, you can actually add in additional metadata within your code to specify, let's say, if you want to use a particular font size or font from your library of fonts, you can actually add the information in CSS format. I'm not going to go through that. I think if you're interested in that, you can just quickly Google and find out the way to create these custom formats in our notebook. All right. Okay.
First, can I ask a question?
Sure, go
I
ahead.
think like you're probably going to come to this afterwards, but in terms of these notebooks, I understand it's great because it gets sort of updated regularly.
Yep.
In terms of other people and collaborators and stuff, like what formats can they view this in, and like can it be downloaded into like a PowerPoint or something?
Yep. So that's the thing. Currently, because we set the output to HTML notebook, you can immediately send this HTML file to them, and they will it will render as a normal HTML file and open it in your web browser. If you want an example, I can show you what it does. Let me see. I think it's not a good idea to do it here.
No, that's okay. If it's not, we can do it later.
So it's web friendly. It integrates directly into all. I haven't had any problems opening it in any web browser. So that's fine. You can also change the output to a PDF if you want to send your collaborators a PDF version. You can also create PowerPoint formats. Probably I'll get the link in a bit and I'll paste it in Etherpad, but you can create Word documents, you can create PowerPoint. I don't recommend PowerPoint in this case because the headers and the style of writing is very specific to a PowerPoint slide, meaning you have to have a header for every slide and the text and the figures have to format it in a particular way. So I had very bad experience with outputting this as a PowerPoint slide, and I recommend using either HTML or PDF, which renders perfectly.
Okay, thanks.
With PDF, when you try to output as a PDF for the first time, it may generate an error saying that you have some missing dependency. Basically, it requires this thing called a latex format or rendering. So just follow the instructions. They would recommend one very good package to install this. So you have to do this manually just for the first time, and then you should be fine.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, cool. All right, so I think it's a good time to do a little bit of exercise. Sorry if you're new here to the workshop, I do incorporate a bit of exercises just to make sure that we understand, and if you have any questions on how to format certain parts of the notebook, you can ask me directly and we can discuss it right now. So first exercise will be pasted right now in Etherpad. So go ahead onto Etherpad. And the question is this. I've given 3 different formatting of metadata. And tell me which of these metadata will produce a desired output. That means it will not give an error. It will give you the metadata as we've seen in the HTML file. Right? So there's 3 options. Have a look at them. Type a 1 right beside the correct answer. So I typed a 1, 2, 3 right at the bottom. So if you think that number 1 is the right answer, type a 1 right beside 1. If you think 2 is the right answer, type a 2. Type a 1 beside 2. Again, it's fine if you're not sure. If you don't wish to type, it's fine. This is not graded. It's just to make sure that you understand the small details of what we've went through, so that you don't have any problems. And I can tell you that after a while you get the hang of it and you know what to look out for. But now we're learning and we're trying to see what works and what don't work with regards to metadata. Okay, I'll give you another like half a minute.
Sorry, Forshan, where do you
Yep.
want us to write the answers?
So if you go to Etherpad, right at the
Yeah,
bottom,
yeah.
there's these 3 options. So I think a lot
Right,
of people
right.
have, yeah.
Oh, so underneath. Sorry, I got
Yes,
it.
underneath, there's these 3 options. So a couple of people have already input their answers.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of you have answered 2. Yes, that is the right answer. So I'm going to go through why the other 2 are not. So number 1, that is fine because, sorry, that is not fine, but the parentheses that is enclosed in the string, that is fine. The problem here is that HTML notebook. So I'm going to just highlight this. I'm not sure if it's going to be seen, but I've basically just highlight a bold HTML notebook. This particular text has to be written on a separate line. It cannot be on the same line. If not, it's going to raise an error and tell you that it doesn't understand what this input means. All right. Number 3 is incorrect because the word cerulean is not spaced from the word theme and column. So you have to have a space between the metadata and the input. All right. So number 2 is the right answer. There's a space between theme and cerulean. HTML notebook is on a separate line, and differential expression analysis is not parenthesized, and that is acceptable. So answer is number 2. I placed the answer in the Etherpad already. Okay. So just a bit of so hopefully you understand just some of the small details of the metadata. So now we can move on and go into the fun bit, which is exactly the main content of the notebook. So this is the thing with a HTML notebook or this R notebook, you can type your text and your descriptions anywhere in the document. You can explain in paragraphs, you can type point forms and give snippets of code anywhere you want. So I'm going to just give a bit of example here. So I'm just going to write text can be written anywhere in the notebook, okay, and render this. So what's going to look like? Save this. So now on the right, you see the HTML output now has a new line that says exactly what I've typed out in the notebook. One small caveat here is this. If I were to press return and type additional text on a new line, so in this case, line 14, so I'm going to type um, text written on a new line will not be rendered as a new paragraph. So I just type this and I'm going to save and let's see what happens. If you write text on a separate line, it will be rendered on the same line as the previous line. So I made a small typo here. As you can see on the right, the text is continuous with line 13. And this is how, you know, it's a small thing, it's a small caveat, you get used to it, but this is to facilitate writing very short, writing lines with very short number of sentences. So in coding, it's always recommended to write your line in your code in a very, I think, was it 60 point or was it 45 point? So if you were to run into a problem whereby you're writing a very long sentence, you can actually type it on a new line, and it will be rendered as the same paragraph as previously. All right. What if you want to write or create a new paragraph? Do separate it by a empty line. So I'm going to create an empty line on line 15, and then I'm going to write a new text. So this will be rendered as a new paragraph. All right. As you can see in the output, after I save the document, the new text on line 16 is now on a new paragraph. Right. So a small caveat or the formatting that you have to follow. But because you can see the output immediately, you can change the text as you go along. Okay, so text can be written anywhere on the document, that's fine. If you want to create a header, you can specify or can use the symbol, the hash symbol. I think on mine, it's shift 3. If you're using a Mac, I've encountered this problem previously. It is option 3, if I'm not mistaken. So do check out your keyboard and try out this. This symbol, if you were familiar with coding, the hash symbol is what we call as a comment symbol. Whatever text you write after this symbol will be commented. But in our notebook, this is not a comment symbol, but this is specifying the header for your document. So I'm going to create the first header, and I'm going to write it. I'm going to say formatting. Let me see, text in Markdown format. Okay, as such. So now I saved it. I saved the document, and you can see that the HTML output now contain the first header with number 1. Again, it's number 1 because this is we have numbered the sections automatically, and you can see that this is formatted as the first level of header. It has very big font. I think this is the there's different layers of font. This is the biggest font in the document, the same font size as the main title. In addition, now you create a table of content right underneath the metadata. And this contains an internal hyperlink. So when you click on this, it will link directly to that particular section. So it's very, very useful when you have a very long document with multiple sections. Your readers can actually navigate very easily using the internal hyperlinks. How to create subheaders or different levels headers. You just have to increase the number of these hash keys. So if I were to create a subheader called create bullet points, which what I'm going to show you in a bit. It will be written as this. 2 hash key represents the second layer of subheading. If I were to add 3 hash key, it will be rendered as the third layer. So 1.1, and the third layer will be 1.1.1.
For sure.
And yes,
Question.
Adi.
So because hashtags are now used
Yep.
in order to create titles,
Mhm.
if
Yep.
we put in a particular table or code
Mhm.
Where normally we would use hashtags for comments to
Yep.
ourselves,
Yep.
we have to remove them then.
Yes, if it's not meant to be outputted, it has to be changed into a comment symbol specifically for our notebook or our Markdown. And I'm going to show you this in a bit. So
Okay.
let's say I'm going to write this is a comment. All right. I don't remember the exact symbol, but there is a shortcut on my computer. I'm not sure about your computer. I'm going to show you this, and then you can actually type it out on your own. So it looks like this. When you input this symbol, it's a very complex symbol, and that's why I don't remember it. This will be rendered as a comment, and I'm going to save this. This will not be output in the HTML document. All right. So hash keys in an R notebook is interpreted as a header. If you want to comment your lines, this will be the new symbol to comment.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Again, everything will be pasted into Etherpad. I'm going to also include this into Etherpad so that you have this information in there. Okay. Cool. So this is a formatting very specific for this style of report. And our notebook or our Markdown adopts this formatting which we call as Markdown format. Ar Markdown, so it's an extension of the original Markdown format. All these hash keys and all the other formatting that I'm going to show you are based on this formatting, and I'm going to paste a link into Etherpad if you want to know more about all the other ways to format your document using Markdown. It's actually quite a big thing. And if you're on, let's say, websites like forums or even GitHub, they do implement Markdown for you to create a rich text, file or rich text output, and it's all based on Markdown. Okay, so what can we do with this Markdown format? The subheader has already mentioned. You can create bullet points with Markdown format. So I'm going to just quickly give a bit of space. So I'm going to push this up a little bit. So how do you create bullet points? Again, very simple. You just use the hyphen symbol on your keyboard, but do make sure that you leave a space between the subheader and your bullet points, right? Leave one space. So I'm going to create my first bullet point, and I'm going to call it point 1, and then create a second bullet point and write as point 2, and that's it, using a hyphen key. Save this, and now our HTML document contains 2 bullet points within the subheader called create bullet points, right? In the Etherpad, I'm gonna paste a bit more description so that you can read through what this formatting really mean, so a bit easier for you. You can also create numbered bullet points. So if you were to substitute hyphen with I'm just gonna write it like that, it will create numbered bullet points. Okay. So again, remember to leave a space between your text or whatever formatting you have in the previous line, and start off with a new line and say point 1 and 2.2. I'm going to save this, and you can see now there both points are now numbered. one thing that I realized after doing this quite a number of times is that some IDE or some interpreter do allow brackets after the number. So 1 followed by brackets and 2 after brackets. I can't remember if R Markdown, R Notebook does this. I can try. So it still does. It still does. So you can also do 1 dot with followed by the text, or I'm going to just write this like that. Okay. So both actually works. I do keep to just 1, so it doesn't I don't get confused, but both works in R Markdown. So that's great. Okay. What else can you do with Markdown? So there are other ways to format text. So I'm going to show you 4 different formatting that you can actually do. And I'm going to write this as a bullet point. That's because you know how to write bullet points. So we're going to write it as bullet point. The first formatting I think a lot of you might want to perform is italics. So the way to write italics is to flank your text with 1 asterisk on each side. I'm going to save this so you can see how it looks like. And in HTML file, the word the bullet point italics is now italicized. Okay. If you were to create a new bullet point with 2 asterisks, this will be formatted as bold. Right? So bold, italics, and if you want to do both, it will be 3 asterisk. Bold and italics. Okay. So very useful and gives this effect of of importance, or if you wanna make a point on your text. You can also add inline code, or I don't usually use this as a code, but I like the way it looks. So it covers your text with a box. So I'm going to show you what I'm referring to. So if I were to use a I can't remember the name of this this symbol. It's it's like a asterisk, but it's a forward asterisk. I can't remember the name. If you were to do this and write, let's say, code, it will render into this format where it create a box right around your text, and it looks quite nice. After a while, you will actually use this format to separate text from your functions, or if you want to specify a particular function, I usually use this formatting because it sort of distinguish things better. If you can't, again, I'm not sure what it is on your keyboard. On the UK keyboard, it's this symbol on the top left-hand corner, just on the left of 1. This is
on Mac, it's like next to, it's between the Shift key and the Z.
yes, that's Shift key and the Z. So in between, in the middle of Shift
On
key.
Mac.
Like, give that a try. Do you have to put a Shift, or you have to press Command to get it on the Mac?
No, it's on my Mac. It's just the normal. It's the key between Shift and Z.
Give it a try. Now, for those who can't find, you can go to Etherpad and Fazal is showing me. Yes, so Fazal is also having the same format as you, Abi. So if you're not sure on if you can't find the symbol, go ahead to Etherpad and copy that line and paste it onto your R notebook for now. And next time you can play around with your keyboard. Okay, last one. Web links. So how do you input HTML links directly into your notebook? The format is as such. You're going to start with a square. It's a square bracket, not a squiggly bracket. Web links followed by a rounded bracket. And within this rounded bracket, you can input any link that you want, and it will be clickable. It will be interactive in your HTML document. So I'm going to just quickly copy Google website. It's the most straightforward. I'm going to save this. You can see now HTML. In the HTML document, web links is of a different color, and it is clickable, and it's going to open up in your browser, any browser, your default browser on your computer, to google.com. All right. Let's see. I think that is the part that I want to share with you with respect to text writing in our notebook, and we are just in time for a break. Um, during the break, I think it would be nice to have another exercise. So you can take your coffee break if you have a bit of time and want to practice some of this formatting. I am pasting the second exercise onto Etherpad. So it's right below the first exercise that we've done previously. And basically what I want you to do is to create your own bullet list, all right? In bullet forms, either numbered or just a symbol bullet, up to you. Write down 3 of your favorite dishes. For the first dish, I want you to insert an image. Let me just paste this and make sure that yep, it's already there. For the first point, create an image. Oh. For the second dish, bold the text. And for the third dish, create a hyperlink to a recipe of the dish. I think I missed out something here, which I didn't tell you that I didn't show you how to actually input an image directly onto your document. So I'm going to paste that code. So later on, I will explain. I will explain in a bit. I'm going to paste the code into Etherpad just above exercise 2. And you can sort of follow that formatting. I'm going to explain to you when we're done. Now, this is how to insert an image. Can give the example. And we'll take about, we can do about 10 minutes. 10 minutes time now is 10:56. We'll resume at 11:06 a.m. If you have any questions along the way, I'll be here. I'm going to take a quick coffee, refill my coffee, and then I will be here to attend to your questions. So I'll see you in about 10 minutes. Okay, welcome back. If you are around and you are ready, can you give me a thumbs up on Zoom? Just click on reactions at the bottom of the Zoom window and give a thumbs up so that I can gauge current attendees. Okay. Yoran, are you here? Alexis, are you here? Yoran and Alexis, just to make sure that you are okay, to give a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, it's all right. We'll resume. I'll take it slow and give it some time for them to catch up. So yeah, exercise 2. I did paste a link in Etherpad to demonstrate how to insert an image. If you look at the format that I pasted on Etherpad, it's very similar to the last bullet point that I showed in the list. It looks the same as how to create a web link in your R notebook. The difference is that you have to start with an exclamation mark, followed by a square bracket, and then followed by a round bracket with a link to your image. It can be in any image. I tried JPEG, that's fine. PNG is fine. TIFF works, but some computer might not render TIFF well. I'm not sure. I cannot find the pattern, but TIFF may or may not work. But PNG and JPEG works fine. You can copy any link that you want from the website. just make sure that it's, if you're on Google or you right click on an image on your computer, on your internet, make sure that you copy the image link, not copy image. So it's, you want the link to the image. The other thing is that you can also paste the link or path to an image on your computer. But if you were to do so, there is one small caveat, which is that the image has to be within the folder that you create your notebook. It's either within or a subfolder found in the same directory. It's a bit weird. That works best. The reason is because when you render this, it is trying to figure out the relative link of your image with respect to your notebook. So it's always, it can be a hassle sometimes when you create your document but you don't see the link. You see an image, you could see an empty image, and one of the reasons could be that. But for today's example, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to show you. We're just gonna just paste an image from the web. So I'm going to share my screen again, and then I'll show you the answer to exercise 2. Sharing again the very big screen. Again, very sorry if it sort of mess up your Zoom a little bit. Always try to realign all the windows again. So Catalina, you have a question earlier on. Is it now working well if you were to use the formatting that I mentioned? Just let me know. Unmute yourself if you want to, and let me know if it works. Okay. So I'm going to paste my answer. This is my answer. You can paste. You can feel free to change and create your own answer. I'm going to just quickly paste, and on screen you're going to see my answer, and I'm going to render this into the R document. Oh, I shouldn't include the previous one, right? And I will also paste the answer into Etherpad if you want to copy and paste onto your notebook and change the links accordingly. So 3 bullet points. I use a numbered bullet point, so it starts with 1 dot, 2 dot, and 3 dot. The first one is a link to an image that I got from, I think it was from this Google image, and I again, within this square bracket, you do not have to specify any text. You can leave it empty. That's fine. This is sort of like an alternate text. If let's say you want to create an accessibility format of your document, and you can actually read out the alternative text to that particular image. So this is quite useful. And then followed by the link to your image. In this case, I will have a JPEG file, and it rendered quite nice in the document. I think I have a formatting error, and again, I have a formatting error because I didn't leave a space. So I want to leave a space, and now the bullet point should work better. So space, very, very important, space between your text and your bullet points. So second bullet point is quite easy. This is a bold formatting with just 2 asterisks. And then the third bullet point is a web link to my third favorite food, which is sushi. And this will bring you to a recipe to make sushi on your own. All right.
Version.
Yo, yes.
When I try inserting an image, it's rotated for some reason. Do you have any idea what that would be?
I never encountered. So on, let's say on the web, it looks fine, I presume.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an image on my computer, and when I open it up, it's fine.
Yeah, but it could be just just the image, the way they store it on their website. You can just try a different one where it's not inverted. So I tried it. It looks straight on my screen.
Right. I mean, certainly another image.
Do you want
not have that
do you
problem.
want to share the link to the image?
Oh,
Okay,
it's
so
just it's just a picture that I had on my computer. I put I put it in the folder where I saved the notebook.
Yeah. So that again, I think Eugene, what he mentioned is right. When you open up in, let's say, your preview or other stuff, it may auto rotate it, but for our notebook, it will render the original form of the image. I've never tried to rotate it. I'll find a link and find some instruction how to do it. It might be useful for you guys, and I'll include it in the Etherpad.
So a related question. Is there a way to control the size of the image?
Yes, you can actually set in your metadata the size of all images as a default, and all image will be rendered to the size. You can also change individual image. Again, I don't do this very often. I will give you that instruction how to configure individual size later on.
Okay.
All right. There is yet another way to input image using code. There you can also configure the size of image. I'm going to show you how to configure the size of a plot later on. You can do the same thing if you insert a image into your code. Okay. All right, so we are ready for the next section. We are going to learn how to write code in our notebook. All right. So previously, you've seen in one of the ways to format text, you can actually use this symbol, this forward. It's not forward slash. Well, I call it as a code symbol for now. You can use this code symbol to write code anywhere you want in your text document, and you can do that. So for example, if you want to compute 1 + 1 and output the code directly, this is how you do it. So you're gonna type in a symbol. You have to start off with the language that you're trying to code in. You can start with R. You can do Python if you want to do Python, or Bash if you want to, and this is followed by the exact code that you're trying to compute. So it's +1. Okay. This will be interpreted by our notebook that you are creating code, and when I save this, it's gonna look like this. So it does look a bit weird. I don't like this. I'm gonna give a bit of, this is again another additional formatting that you can actually use. Links have been given, so these are basically line breaks that you can actually add into your document. So to give a little bit of breaks, let me put a little bit more. Okay, should be better. Okay, so what happened here? So we created a new line where we inserted a code to compute 1 + 1 using R, and the output is value of 2, right? This is the most basic way, and you can do this if you want to, but this will be very inefficient because you imagine having multiple lines of code whereby you're trying to plot a graph or output a table. You want something more robust to keep track of your code and run your code as you go along. So this is where our notebook implements what we call as a code chunk. So the way to create code chunks is as such. You can click on the symbol right above your R document or our notebook. This C, start with C with a plus sign on the top left-hand corner of the symbol. When you click that, you are given several options on the language that you want to use. You can select R if you want to code in R. You can select Python if you want to, and it will create this a chunk of code right directly where you want it to be. It looks very similar to line 50, the code that we wrote previously, just that the code symbol is now written as 3 symbols rather than 1, followed by the language that you're trying to write in. And you can start typing your code within this code chunk. So let's do something simple, all right? Let's do again 1 + 1 again. Okay, or maybe let's do something a bit more more fun. Let's do a bit of function. I think this should work on your computer, I think. So let's do data, and what this does is to actually list the data that you have in your environment, or the inbuilt data that you have. So once you type in your code, you can run it by clicking the play button, or this green play button on the right hand corner of the chunk, and this will run the current chunk that you have created. So I'm going to type this, and what you're going to see is that in this case, it will run the code and open up a new tab with a list of data that you have on your environment. And you can use these data sets if you wish. All right. If you were to type in a code which can be output directly, so I'm gonna comment this, and you can comment this now with a normal hash key. Previously, we used a very unique symbol for our notebook, but now since we're writing code within a chunk, all the rules for writing code now can be used. So with a hash key, it comments out this code, and let's do let's do some sort of computation, 1 + 5, and then multiply that by 2, right? I'm just trying to show you how this looks like in our notebook. I'm going to run this, and you can actually see the output being written down as a output chunk, and it tells you exactly the value of the computation, and the formatting is exactly the same as how you are used to when you send a code to a console. Okay, this hasn't been saved yet. We are just writing the code and running the code. It's all within a temporary folder, or this data within a temporary folder. But once you press the save key, you will render the code and the output into your HTML document. So on the right, what you can see is exactly what you typed out in a nicely written format. The first box corresponds to the code that you have typed, and the second box right underneath it is the output of the code. And you can configure this to your heart's content. You can hide the code if you don't want to look at it, or you can just show it as it is. You can change the way the code is being previewed directly in the notebook. For example, you just want to show the code without showing the output. There are several ways to do this. The easiest way is to click on this cogwheel button. It's the second button to the left of the play button. When you click this, you can actually configure each of your chunk. You can change the name of the chunk. So let's say I'm gonna change this to an example code. What happened within the R notebook is that it inserts the text example code right after the language R in the chunk. So this is the way to create a name for your chunk. Why is this useful? So imagine you were to you'd run your document, you render your document, and you found an error, or R notebook found an error in your code. It will point out to you which exact chunk that error exists in, and you can immediately go to that chunk and rectify the error rather than trying to find and parse your code. So that's quite useful. You can also change the output, like the way your output is being produced. You can show only the output. You can show the code and output. You can show nothing, just run the code, just run the code without showing anything, or just show nothing and don't run the code. The last one can be useful if you want to, let's say, load a library, or you know that this library requires a lot of dependency packages, and every time you load it, you will be greeted with a long list of messages, and you don't want to show these messages to your collaborators. You can just show nothing but don't run the code. Just demonstrate this is what the code does, and the rest has. I'm going to show you one example. So I'm going to create a new chunk, but before that, there are also other ways to configure your code chunk. You can actually toggle the show warnings. So this will show all the warnings that comes with the code. If you want to switch this off, you can toggle it to the left. So warning will now be false. And you can also do the same with show messages. Right? I don't really play around with the other two, the last two, page tables and custom figure size. This might be useful if you want to change the size of your figure later on. Okay, let's just press apply. I'm just gonna just save this, just make sure that it's rendered. So let's give another example here. Let's say we want to let's say install a package. We want to demonstrate how to install a package, but we don't want to show all the messages that comes with installation. So I'm going to create a new chunk. I'm going to, again, I'll write it here so that it's easier for you to see. Installing packages. And I want to show how to install, but I don't want to run the code. So it's basically show just show nothing and don't run the code. So basically, it will not evaluate the code, and it will also no, actually it's wrong. It cannot be false. This has to be true. It has to not evaluate the code, but it has to include the code. So show the code, but do not evaluate the code, if that makes sense. Okay. For example, I wish to install a package called Tidyverse. If you haven't have this package installed on your computer, this will be a good time to install later on, because we're going to use Tidyverse in a bit. So let's say I want to show how to install Tidyverse, but I don't want to run the code or output anything. So I'm going to click run. Right, this will, on my computer, will raise an error because the way that my computer is configured is slightly different. I'm going to stop this for now. I'm going to just click this away and going to press save. Okay, so it will not output the error or the code or the output of the code, but it will show you the code that I have written, installed packages, Tidyverse in the output document. Okay, does it make sense? Do you want another example? Okay. Let's try let's try this. There's a third exercise, but I think it might be a bit confusing with respect to the code output and stuff. So let's try this. I do need you to install two packages that you may or may not have on your computer. So let's use this as an exercise. Let's see. I'll change this a little bit. Okay, I think should be fine. So I'll paste this exercise 3 onto the Etherpad, and let's give this a try. Okay, and I will address any issue, any confusion with this. Okay. So in a new code chunk, install these three packages. If you haven't done so, again, it's Tidyverse and a package called DT and Plotly. And at the same time, load them onto your notebook. So I want you to run library and followed by the name of the packages into your notebook, into your environment, without showing the code and without showing the output. Does this make sense? Right, give this a try. I will give you the answer. Let's give us about 2 minutes, and I will give you the answer in a bit. Okay, so let's try this out. So exercise 3. So we're going to write a new code chunk that will install the packages and load them into your R notebook without showing the output. Okay, again, why don't you want to show the output? Probably these are like background packages that you require to run your code, but you don't want to clutter the output or even to show the output in your document. So the user just see the functions being executed, but do not show them the code to load these packages. All right. So again, create a new code chunk. I'm going to label this as exercise 3. And this is, again, might be confusing at first. After a while, it will, once you test it out and figure out the desired output that you wish, you can actually select the right one. So we want to show nothing. We don't want to output the code, don't want to output the results, but we want to run the code because these code are required to load all these packages, right? And I'm going to probably switch off, maybe switch off warnings just to make sure that we don't get any warnings and messages, and then apply. And we're going to type our code. So if you're not, if you haven't done so, previously we installed the tidyverse right above. If you haven't installed the other two, you can do this. Install the packages, DT, and what did I say, plotly. Okay, this has to be in parentheses, and you can run the code by clicking on the play button right now. I'm not going to do that again. I have this already installed, and it's gonna raise an error for mine because my directory for installation is somewhere else. Okay? So if you haven't done so, you can run this because we will be using DT and plotly in a bit. I'll tell you what it does. And then we will load the library into the environment. So library followed by DT, library followed by plotly, and again, library followed by tidyverse if you haven't loaded into tidyverse yet. Yeah. I will load the libraries, but I will not install. So I'm going to comment the first line out, and I'm going to run this. Right, so it will, on my computer, it will load just the 3 libraries. On your computer, if you haven't installed the packages, it will also install DT and plotly as well. I may have run into a problem because I stopped the code previously. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to restart my R Studio. Save. I'll quickly restart this in a bit. Yeah. Okay. Document is here. And then if I were to preview this, everything will still be there. So this is the cool thing about our notebook. Once you save it, the HTML file will be retained as when you left it last. Okay. All right, give it a try again. I'm gonna run this chunk. It shouldn't take too long. It's just loading off library. And now I'm gonna save it. And the HTML file will be updated, but you don't see any output. You don't see these 3 functions or 4 functions being echoed onto your HTML document. Questions about this part, about configuring the output? Any questions?
I just have a question real quick.
Yep.
So because we're installing these packages, we're using the packages, can we add, how do we add the information in the notebook at the end, which packages were used?
You mean to tell the collaborators what packages to use?
Exactly.
Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, sure. You can create another bullet form, bullet point to describe to the collaborators, hey, to follow along this document, you would need these packages to you need to be installed on your computer to run it. The other way is to, show them that you want to install the packages, as what I've done for line 57 to 59, right? As such, show the code, but don't evaluate it on your own computer. So you are not running that code on your computer, but you're showing the code to your collaborator. So
Okay.
two different ways. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So no other questions, we'll move on to the next part, which is the one of the fun bit. So we're going to show you how to display interactive tables from data frame or matrix, depending on what sort of data you have. So the intent here is that you have a table that you created from your analysis, and you want to show how the table look like to your collaborator, all right? And we can do that using code chunks, because you know how to import your data, you know how to preview your data using head or just printing it out on the console, and that's exactly what you have to do with an R notebook. So we're going to create a code chunk, call it R. I'm not going to name it, just for time's sake, and I'm going to use a data which is already inbuilt in tidyverse, or even I think it's even in base R, should be there, and it's called empty cars. Okay. Again, if you're not sure what data set you have, the previous code that I ran, called data with brackets, this lists down all the inbuilt data sets that you have already on your computer, right? And if you were to run this in a console, what will happen is that the console will print out the contents of your data frame. And in this case, it will do exactly the same thing into your notebook, right? Spits out in this case, the first 10 lines of 32 rows, and you can see the different columns. I'm going to save this and show you exactly how this looks like in your R notebook or your HTML document. If I were to go down, you get a new header, as well as the code, empty cars, and a table. And this is perfect as it is, because you can look at the different columns. There's a couple more columns. You can click on this arrow key that brings you to displays the next few columns if you want. You can look at the next 10 lines by clicking on the numbered index at the bottom, look at the entries, and you can, your collaborator can actually look at this table as it is. You can format it, you can arrange or sort your data in your code first, and output the table as how you want it to be. The thing with this table is that it's static, right? It just shows you the data, but your user cannot really interact or cannot perform any sort of filtering or rearranging if they want to, or sorting if they want to. So I'm going to show you what DT does. So DT is a package that handles data frame very, very well, right? Creating interactive tables, right? So what DT does is to create an interactive form of the table, and the code for DT is very, very simple. First, create a code chunk. Again, always start with a code chunk, and within the code, lines of code, type data table, followed by the data frame, the variable containing your data frame. And that's it. Okay, just this one function will transform your data to a interactive table. Run this. Always remember to run your chunk before saving a document, because if you don't run it, you won't see it as an output. And you can see in your notebook, it's already slightly different. I'm going to save this, and we can interact with this table in the HTML document. Okay, so this is the new table rendered by DT. And the columns and the rows are all the same, but now you can actually play around with the columns and you can sort it accordingly. So let's say if I click on MPG, it's now going to sort MPG in ascending order. Clicking it again will then descend the values in MPG and sort it in descending order. Right? You can search for a particular variable or value within your table. Probably I type Toyota, which is one of the entries. So you have Toyota Corolla, Toyota Corona, just by searching it, which we can't do this previously. Previously, there's no option to search for a particular text. Now you can with DT. Can also change the number of rows to show. This gives a bit more flexibility to your users, and you can show up to 100 lines if you wish. And at the bottom is the same thing. It's an index that you can actually change the page of your table to look at other entries. So this is just a basic function. You can do so many things with data table and DT, but just using this function will transform your data. And I've not used any other packages apart from DT ever since I've heard about this package. All right. There are other packages, like if you have heard about Cable with a K, it does also format tables in a particular way, which looks similar, but the features are not rich as compared to what DT can actually perform. I recently used this package called Stargazer. Again, I haven't included in this link, but I'll put it later on. So Stargazer outputs, again, the similar sort of formatting in HTML or PDF. But the cool thing is that it creates this very scientific table that you see in papers ever so often with a dependent variables at the top and then independent variables as rows, and you can actually sum up your statistics. You can put in your correlation values, your R-square values, and it's formatted for you quite automatically. So it's quite interesting. Stargazer, if you haven't heard about it. I'm going to give you one tip, one set of code. I'm not going to run it to you. I'm going to just paste it in the Etherpad, and probably I'll run it just over here, maybe just to preview a little bit. But this additional line of code is actually very useful because it allows your user to directly export the table into any format, Excel file, a text, a TSV file, CSV file, up to you. And you can also filter each column based on a variable. So instead of just searching, you can also filter individual columns. So the code is in the Etherpad. So have a look at it, and you can run it if you want to. I'm going to quickly run it and show you. It looks, again, very similar, just that there's additional features. I use this now every single time. And again, it gives some buttons to copy the table, export it as CSV and Excel file directly, and also filter the columns based on a particular value. So this might be useful for you if you're doing reporting in the future.
I have one question. So maybe mentioned it, but maybe I missed it. How do you include your own Excel or other files or tables?
Oh, this is okay. So importing of files and downloading or manipulating of files follows the same way as how you've done it before. I won't go through this, but I think we've gone through how to import Excel files or TSV files in the previous workshop. Yeah. Write down the same exact code within that chunk. So you might want read.delim, read_CSV, for example, and the data will be imported directly into our notebook the same way as you run a normal code.
Okay, yeah.
All right. In our example, I'm using a inbuilt data because it's easier, so that I don't have to sort of use a arbitrary data that you might not understand, or it's gonna have problems later on. But this variable already exists, so I'm just pulling it out from your environment. Okay.
Thank you.
If you're not sure, if you have questions about how to import data, you can ask me later or email me, then I can help you with that. All right.
I'll play around and see how.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So, any other questions about table? Because it's rather straightforward. It's printing out the name of the variable and showing the collaborator exactly what you want to show them. Again, you can filter. You can select certain columns before outputting, or give that option to your collaborator to filter their own data that you have given. Okay. If not, we can go through the last part, which is to create interactive plots. And I will be using Ggplot for plotting this. I know some people not very familiar with Ggplot, or some people prefer the base plot that comes with base R. That's fine, doesn't really matter. You can use any function within R or any other packages that you can load. That's all completely fine. I'm going to use Ggplot as an example today. Just a simple plot. I'm not going to go through to detail into Ggplot. And we will plot out data from this empty cars data frame, right? So same thing, create a new chunk in our language and start typing your code. So I'm going to create a new variable called plot. And within this, I'm going to create a Ggplot with the data empty cars. Again, code will be pasted in Etherpad. And if you want to copy and paste, you can do so immediately. And we're going to plot the two axes using a static parameter. I'm going to put x as mpg and y as the displacement, disp. Okay. And then we're going to create a geometry of a scatter plot. So that's geom point. And let's keep it simple. That should be fine. And do I have an error here? GG, yeah, missing one bracket. And run this. Okay, click run. So because we save the plot into a variable, it will not output anything to our notebook. Neither will it plot anything into your HTML document. It will basically print out the code and without any plot output. If you wish to display the plot directly into your document, specify or print out plot. That's how you normally do it on your console or in your R script. Okay, I'm going to run this again. Always run your code before you render and save the document. And there you go. You have output a plot directly into your HTML document, and your collaborators can now see the plots that you're trying to convey to them. All right, as simple as that. As mentioned, we can configure the size of your image. So I'm going to do that in a separate chunk and show you how to specify the options to change the dimension, create a new chunk, and because we save the variable, save the plot into a variable called plot, we can just call out plot again. So this code will print out the same plot. But now we can add in more information to the chunk. So the way we do that is to first type a comma after the language, or after if you give a name, if you give your chunk a name, it will be a comma after the name of the chunk. And after you press comma in RStudio, you will actually see several arguments that you can actually use. You can sort of pass through and look through this and look at all the different ways to modify your chunk. We are interested in fig.height and fig.width. Right? We're going to use an arbitrary value, like square, put 8, and a fig.width of 8 as well. 8 here is arbitrary. It's actually relative to the size of your document. So if you're familiar with HTML and all of this web formatting, the maximum width of your document is actually 12. So 8 basically tells them that you are trying to create a document with about 3/4 or this sort of width of an image. You're going to run this and then render this into the document. Oh, I think I have a I have a missing comma sign here. Sorry. After every argument, after every option, to include a comma sign. I think I've included that into the Etherpad, so that should be fine. We can change this. It looks a bit weird on the HTML document. So I'm going to quickly change this a little bit so that doesn't look expected though. Fig.height, fig.width. Make it smaller. Oh yeah, the reason is because I didn't press play. Yes, always remember to press the play button before you modify. So if you change anything and you don't press the play button, it will render to the last image that you ran. So now we change figure height of 3 and then figure width of 5. Then the image is now smaller and output as such. Okay. Yep. You can right click on any of these images. For example, on the bottom image, I'm going to right click and you can copy the image or save the image onto your computer. This is all saved into a PNG format. And your collaborator can also get access to your image. The only problem with this is that the quality of your image is specified by the resolution of the image. So there is an option to actually change the pixel size and the resolution of your image so that you can create a more high resolved, well resolved image. So you can do that in the options of the code chunk. All right. So last part, how to create interactive plots using Plotly. So this is very similar concept to DT, whereby it uses very simple code to convert your existing data, either as a table or for Plotly as an image, into an interactive format. All right. And I'm going to run the code. I'm going to write out the code first, and I'm going to show you how it works. So the function is ggplotly. This was another reason why I use ggplot, because the plotly function works well with ggplot images. So just by typing ggplotly followed by the name of the plot that we have created previously called plot, this is sufficient to convert the plot into an interactive plot. So I'm going to run this, and you can immediately see, even in your R document, the image is slightly different. And if you hover onto each of your data points, it will list down the values, in this case MPG, and display as a label. Right? I'm going to save this first so that you can actually see that the same output will be rendered into your HTML file. And this is how it looks like on your HTML document. You can play around with this. You can zoom in to a particular point. You can even click and drag. This is what I like about Plotly, because you interact with the data. I mean, if you imagine having very dense data with gene expression or a lot of multi-points, you can zoom in into a particular location and look at the labels of the data points. To zoom out, you can double click on any point of the graph. So I just double click on the graph and it brings me back to the original dimension. You can also save this as PNG. Again, your collaborator can do this the same on their own computer, and there are other options for you to scale or zoom in and out using these interactive buttons. This are all inbuilt with Plotly, so you don't have to add this on your own. These are all you can change this if you want to, but I haven't had a need to do so. So I don't really play around with these buttons. I mean, I don't change the kind of options to modify. These are all fine. There is a way to specify the label. So for example, you wanna add a third variable and label this as, let's say, the name of the data point, for example. There is a way to do so. I'm not gonna show you because it does take a bit of practice. The first time I did this, it failed miserably. But if you specify your let's say your dimensions properly, for example, you color them by the another variable, let's say the type of cars or something, it will automatically be included as one of these labels in the data points. You can also add text into your ggplot, and this will also be rendered as a text in your data point. So there is different ways to do this, which I will leave you to play around and configure your data as how you want it to be. But this plot itself is actually, highly functional and highly interactive for you and also for your collaborators.
First, I have a question about in this Plotly, when you magnify, you get this magnified view, then how do you go back?
So you double click on
double click
on any point. So
okay.
Yes, I think there's another button called was it auto scale, or is it home or reset axis? You can actually click on, I think this home button, and if you click this, it will also bring you back to the original view of the plot.
I also have another question. So in chunks, in the chunks that we now use, we don't really specify which data set we're referring to. So, for example, in line, I can't see your code anymore.
It's okay. I think you're referring to probably.
We don't specify. Well, if we go down a bit, so here we specify the empty cars.
Yep.
And then we go down, and in those following chunks, we don't actually specify which data set we're referring to. So we have several data sets. How do we know which one?
I understand. You can add comments. Again, you can add comments.
I think that the question is about essentially you created variable plot, which stores essentially this graphical object, right?
Yep.
Created above, and we keep on referring to this plot.
Yes.
To replot it. So that's kind of how you specify. Once specified, it remembers that plot is the graphical object.
The variable has already been created.
Yeah, so plot is not a function, right? Because in our functions would have the brackets in them, right? Plot is the variable.
This is the variable containing the image that we have created.
I guess
right? If you want to be explicit, if you want to specify that this plot is actually containing data from empty cars, you can add in comments into your code, or even use the normal text. You type in your usual text in any space outside the code chunk to again describe what you have done. Again, what Eugene says is correct. This is not a function, but this is an object, an image object.
Confuse me for a bit.
Yes.
The plot as a function, I guess,
yes.
not as the actual variable.
It's now plot is a variable, not a function.
That makes sense. Okay.
And
we could have called it any other name, right? So just
exactly.
up to you.
Up to you.
It could have been just whatever, GG or P.
These are all these are all naming of variables, and we covered it in the first lesson. If you're not, there are different ways of naming a variables, and this is just one way. I just use plot as an example of a name. Can be more detailed and explicit with your variable namings.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
And that's all that I want to share with you. We covered quite a bit. We created a new HTML document with options to change the metadata. Right now, if you look at the document, I'm gonna just go do a final save. You can actually see that the table of contents has already been created for you as you go along. We didn't have to touch this table of contents. These are hyperlinks. You click on any of the table of contents, it will bring you to that section. So it's actually very useful. We learn how to type text within the R notebook and render it into the HTML. we formatted it using different ways of formatting, using bullet points, italize, bold, and even add an image directly into the document. We then look at how to write code and display your data in the form of tables as well as plots to be shared to your collaborators. The way you write it is exactly the same as how you write your R script or writing code in your console. It's the same. It's the way you output. You can configure what you want to show and what not to show in your document. And I'll show you two ways to create an interactive output, either using DT for data frames or Plotly using for creating interactive plots that you can actually use to create a document which is more interactive for your collaborators. Any questions so far? It's about 12. We are done. If you have any questions, I am more than happy to address right now. The links to resources have been updated. I've included a couple more links to format DT tables and Plotly plots. There's different ways to change this. I do want to provide or get you to do a small homework if you want to. The description of the homework is in Etherpad. Again, this is optional if you want to practice this writing of R notebook and render into HTML document. You can try to do so. So basically, create your own R notebook and render into HTML to show your collaborator or show your readers how to import data and plot your data. It's like a tutorial, like a very common tutorial that you see on websites or on blogs, where they show you exactly how to perform a particular analysis. So do the same thing. You can use your own data if you want to. You can show how to import your own data and then display it. So that will test whether or not you are able to import and display the data that is coming from your own computer. Or you can use the built-in data as how I've used in empty cars in this example, up to you. And then describe exactly how to perform plotting, how to configure your plots, how to change the aesthetics and stuff, and render it into HTML file. If you want to share it with me, if you want to have me to, if you want me to look at it and give comments or a mark, for example, if you want to, do send it to me by email, and I will look at it and give my comments. If not, you can render it, make sure that it works fine on your computer, and use that as a reference or a README file for future reference. Okay. I also included a link to a feedback form. This is something that I'm doing recently using Office forms. And if some of you don't want to give your feedback directly into Etherpad, because you don't want to show your show opinions, but that's fine. It would be nice to have feedback. I always accept feedback. I like to read feedback because that will improve the way I do things. I've managed to improve quite a bit from the very first workshop. And if you have anything to recommend me, go ahead and click on that link and give me your feedback. It's anonymous. I switched off the names and the email, so I will not know who give that feedback. So that is, if that works for you, can do that. If not, I think we are done. If you have any questions as well, you can email me. I will stay for another 10 minutes. If you have any questions, I am happy to address it to you. If not, I wish you a very good day, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.